We'll call our regular board meeting for December to order. Appreciate everybody coming out this evening. Not a lot of the first half of the, relatively speaking, half of the school year left. Appreciate y'all being here. We've got some great recognition tonight, but before we do recognition, we always open with the pledge, and I'm told we have a group of students from Spiegelville Elementary here who are going to lead us in the pledge. Excellent job. And I understand that there are a number of those students who are going to be recognized this evening with regard to the holiday card. So without further ado, then, we're going to turn it over to Superintendent and Susan Vick for recognition.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Russick, members of the board, and members here in the audience. It's my pleasure to recognize tonight our holiday card artists. Each year, Midway ISD has an annual tradition that we send holiday cards, but ask our students to provide the artwork for those cards, and we then select our different themes each year. And so this year, we're so proud of the students that were selected for the 2021 Holiday Card Artists. So we have a number of students from Spiegelville Elementary School. So, yeah, where's the card? Yes, ma'am. That would be a fantastic.
Get the card.
Ms. Vick will show that to everyone real quickly. And they did different themes and even drew individual penguins, and each of the board members and myself, we got to choose our penguin and sign our name to it. So it was really, really cute. And appreciate the fine arts and our teachers there at the elementary school for that. So let me begin with our first group of students, our first graders. And I believe I have certificates right there, Ms. Vick. I'm going to start with Everly Cohagen. She'd come forward. She's right there. All right, thank you, Everly. We'll get your certificate to you. Athena Johnson is not here tonight, but we want to thank Athena. And Juliet Macias. Is Juliet here? Come all the way up. All right, first grader. Come see Ms. Vick. Excellent. Oh, good, they brought their work, so she can turn that around. And students, after your name is called, if you'll stand right there and stay with Ms. Vick, I want a big group picture. All right. Our second graders, our next student is Jackson Coleman. Is Jackson here? Come on forward, Jackson. Stay up here for us. And Elena DeMaria. Where's Elena? There, come forward, please. And Adeline Howard. Adeline. Graham Mahane. Where's Graham? And Abby Wells. All right, here comes Abby. She is working hard up there, Miss Vick. So, all right. So next, I'm going to introduce to you our third graders. Where is Aliana Cardenas? Aliana? And Taylor Warwick. Where's Taylor? And fourth grader, Sydney Cooper. Sydney Cooper. Gabby Dumas. Gabby. Charlie Harris. Madison Hernandez. Kaylee Kent. Absent tonight. Zoe Schutza. Absent tonight. Okay. Zoe's not here tonight. Shannon Seaver. And last but not least, Liberty Sen. And of course, we want to recognize our art teacher, Bethany Simmons. Where's Miss Simmons? Come forward, please, Miss Simmons. Outstanding work. Yes. And we'll do another one in just a second here. So let's give Spiegelville a round of applause. Congratulations. Mom and Dad, y'all all right? Okay, so thank you, Spiegelville. Great work. And now I want to recognize also Spring Valley Elementary School with second grader J.C. Bennett. There you are. And fifth grader Ben Crumpton. There you are, Ben. And we have art teacher Caroline Hill. Come forward, Ms. Hill. And Principal Kathy Edwards. All right, come forward. And these are our art winners from Spring Valley. All right, very good, thank you. All these kids are on the nice list, that's for sure. Santa's nice list. All right, next I have a very, very special presentation for a couple of our staff members. And I would like to welcome our guests here to present recognition on behalf of Special Olympics Texas is Dalton Hill, North Region Executive Director, and Maggie Boyle, the Unified Champion School Specialist. So guys, I'll turn it over to you and let you have your presentation here.
Thank you very much. We are excited to be here for a very specific reason, but before we get into that, we're going to recognize two specific staff here at Midway ISD that we are grateful for their partnership, their efforts, and things that help promote inclusion across the district. One of the big initiatives, and I'll give a quick overview of why we're here. So an initiative that Special Olympics launched is called Unified Champion Schools. So we launched this across the country 14 years ago now. Texas has been a little bit behind the curve with Unified Champion Schools, but it's a school-based initiative where we want to help come alongside school campuses, working with advisors, working with student groups to really promote inclusion, partnering those with and without intellectual disabilities to build relationships and break down barriers and garner respect for one another. And so that's our movement. That's where we're going as an organization. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary, and for our motto for the next 50 years is the Inclusion Revolution. And so in our goal in the state of Texas, since we launched this initiative here in the state 2 years ago, so we're really far behind, 14 years as a country, but 2 years as a state organization, we already have 400 campuses in the last 2 years that have signed on as Unified Champion Schools. And so we are grateful for that. Our goal actually by the end of the year is to get to 600 campuses. And so we are excited, especially for the work that Midway ISD is doing to promote inclusion on your campuses. We are working with each school individually, but a real cool thing that actually took place last year is we finalized a partnership with UIL as well to promote Unified as a division of athletics. So we're still working on that, still building it out, but ultimately the goal with UIL is that they want each school, each high school to have a varsity, junior varsity, freshman, and unified team to give an opportunity to those special ed students to qualify and compete for state championships as well. And I'll share a quick story that this ties in with Midway ISD because the people we're recognizing actually helped us launch UIL initiatives here. And so Midway ISD actually hosted the first area UIL Unified Track and Field competition. And then they hosted the first regional UIL track and field competition, which then qualified schools doing this for the first time ever to go to the state championships in San Antonio. That was hosted by UIL specifically, sanctioned and everything. They got the plaque to take back to their school, put with the rest of all their state trophies and medals and everything like that. And when we were tearing it down at the end of the event, we were there as staff just to help run the event. We had a mother come up to us afterwards, and she just stops. What we're just picking up. We don't know what to expect. Stops us. She goes, "Hey, can I talk to y'all for a second?" And then she just starts bawling, and she goes, "I just want to thank you for starting this initiative here in our state because I never thought that my son with Down syndrome would get a chance to compete for a state championship." So that's why we do what we do, and that's why we're so grateful for districts like Midway and individuals like Julie and Brad, who we are recognizing today because they helped us launch that initiative here in our state, in our region, in our area. So we are super grateful. We have a new award that this is first time we're launching this here. We've never given these out before, so we're recognizing very special individuals across the state. So Julie Bazinski and Brad Shelton, please come on over.
Thank you for having me.
Certainly want to congratulate Julie and Brad, and also want to recognize Ms. Cochran, our Special Education Director, and our Assistant Director there, Dr. David Kane. Thank you all so much for the support of Special Olympics.
Recognition from here on out. She's really good at it. She wins.
All time.
She wins, yes, indeed. And I don't know if y'all noticed or not, but those balls are sitting on turf. Yeah. Kind of appropriate, I thought. Kind of appropriate. Hey, I'm just an observation. Just an observation.
Is it already done? Okay.
Almost.
All right, we have the operating procedures for special ed as an update on the information. If anybody has questions about that. If not, then we'll go to the presentation discussion items, the first of which is our time of year again already, annual financial audit report. Nothing like numbers, right? But you always make them interesting, Chris. Thank you.
Good evening. Yeah, I've noticed the crowd's a little lighter.
A little lighter.
My name is Chris Pruitt. I'm an audit partner at Patillo Brown and Hill and a graduate of Midway Independent School District, I might add. Tonight, I'd like to discuss your annual financial report, and you should also have a copy of a letter. I would like to go over each one briefly, answer any questions that you might have over either document or the audit process in general. With that being said, in regards to your financial statements, On page 2, you will find an independent auditor's report. That report states that the financial statements are the responsibility of the district, and that our responsibility as your auditor is to express an opinion on those financials. The opinion's at the bottom of page 2. You received what we call an unmodified opinion. You might have heard it also referenced as a clean opinion. And what that means is that the financials can be relied upon by a third party and that they are free of material misstatement in our professional judgment. So that's good. That's what you'd like to see in your opinion letter. On page 4, you will find a management discussion and analysis. I always refer to this as the cliff notes of the financials. It's a great place to go, read 5 pages, gain an understanding of what occurred during the year without actually diving into the financials themselves. It is the responsibility of the finance director to put that together. The financials themselves on page 9, 10, and 11, you will find what we call government-wide financials. This is the only time during the year that you will see these sets of financial statements. This is not how the district keeps their books. There's a conversion that needs to be made. The main difference between this set of financials and the next one that I'm going to discuss is the inclusion of your capital assets and your long-term debt. And I would like to remind you, as part of that long-term debt, that does include your net pension liability and your OPEBs or other post-employment benefit liabilities. Those are 2 pretty large numbers usually. The fund financials begin on page 12. This should look a lot more familiar to you. This is how you do your budget. You have 4 what we call major funds: your general debt service, ESSER, which is a COVID grant, and your capital projects fund. The thing that always gets asked is, how are we doing? How's our equity? Your fund balance unassigned in the general fund is $24.7 million. So related to your yearly expenditures in that general fund of $72.3 million, it's considered healthy. You're running at around 4 months, which is actually perfect. On pages 15 and 16, you will find a statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, which is a really long word for an income statement. So you can see your revenues and expenditures to see how you've done. In addition to those 4 funds, all of the other activity has been rolled up into one column, other governmental, and there's a schedule in the back that I'll point out later. On page 18, you will find your proprietary funds. This is your child care programs after school. Not a whole lot to see there. Not a whole lot of activity, going on. The notes to the financials begin on page 23. Like the management discussion and analysis, they are in a written format. They are designed to provide additional information to the financial statements and do some explaining of how you account for certain things and provide additional information on most of your assets and liabilities balance sheet items. And there's a very long note regarding your pension plan in there that it's a really good read. On page 44, you will find the budget to actual for your general fund. I would like to point out that your total revenues were in excess of $1 million more than anticipated, largely driven by your local and intermediate sources. On the expenditure side, you came into the black, $2.5 million, meaning you spent $2.5 million less than anticipated. So for the year, you're at $3.5 million, better off than your budget. So that shows conservative budgeting and is a good thing. That combining schedule that I referred to earlier can be found beginning on page 52, 53, and so forth. The reason I'm pointing this out is that if you have interest in a specific grant or grant program that you cannot find at the beginning of the report, I would refer you to this part of the report, and you will see a listing of quite a few grant programs that the district has. The last part of the report that I'd like to point out is your federal awards section. That begins on page 64. The school district receives more than $750,000 of federal funding, so you are required to have what is called a single audit. That is done in conjunction with your regular financial audit. And it's a process by which we go in, we identify your large grant programs or high-risk grant programs, and then we do additional test work on those above and beyond what we would normally do. There's 2 reports that I have to issue in conjunction with that process. The first one's on page 64. This is referred to as a government auditing standards letter or a yellow book report. And what it is we're discussing your internal control over financial reporting and compliance with various grants, laws, and regulations as it relates to the entire district as a whole. What does that mean? These are the things that you normally think of when you think of an audit. We're looking at your controls over cash, controls over capital assets, computer passwords, things like that. I'm happy to say that nothing came to our attention that we feel could cause a misstatement of the financials. So you got a clean report there. On page 66 is the second letter. This is a uniform guidance letter. Basically, it's the same concept in that we're looking at your internal controls and compliance, but this time it's with those grants that we did the additional test work on. I'm happy to say that nothing came up during that single audit that would cause us to believe that you were out of compliance with those grants. So there's no findings for your compliance testing. If you're wondering, we did look at your COVID-19 ESSER grant. It's a lot of money, and it's new. And we also looked at your Idea B cluster. So those are the grants that we did the additional drill down work on. The second document is a letter to those charged with governance. There are certain things that I have to convey to you as your auditor. I've just chosen to put into a written format rather than verbally assaulting you with all this stuff. It discusses our responsibility in regards to the audit. It discusses use of estimates such as accumulated depreciation or allowance for taxes, whether or not we had any disagreements with management, which I'm happy to say we did not, and a few other things. It's a standard letter that we draft every year, and I'm just pointing out to you what it is. Now, at this time, I'd like to field any questions that you might have over either document or the audit process in general, what we do or don't do.
Question? Anybody on?
I would also like to add that your finance department is good above, and and I would tell you otherwise as a citizen of the city and an ex-student. So, finance department's in good hands.
Chris, to put some perspective on that, without naming any names, how many
Probably over 50 or 60, probably over 2 states. So, quite a few. You're welcome.
And I'm glad you looked into the COVID ESSER account. Yeah, the microphones. Being new, I just think that gives us reassurance because that was a lot of money and
Yeah, that was not, I mean,
stressful time.
that's, we have to, the feds make us look at all that stuff, so. But we did look at it, so.
All right. So this is on the consent agenda for later on, so if you've got questions, now's the time to ask them. If not, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good holiday.
You too.
Chris.
Sort of in keeping with the theme of numbers, we go to the monthly finance report. Wesley.
I heard these guys are good, so we're looking forward to this part.
Yeah, we'll see how good here shortly.
No pressure. All right, well, for our November financial report, I do have on page 4 of the report. Let's see this. I turned it on. So page 4 of the report, I've updated the projected ADA on that table on the right there, so you can see where we budgeted 8,022, projecting 7,820, and then our WADA, which takes into account our weighted student populations for funding purposes, I'm projecting 10,008, which is less than what we budgeted. So we are trending lower than what the budget was built on. This does not take into account the adjustment, the hold harmless adjustment for the first 6 weeks. The state will let us make up for some of that low attendance, and we'll be able to kind of project in February what that looks like for us financially for the year. Also, going off what Mr. Pruitt shared, the ESSER 2 funds that were in the audit report we looked at, it was about $2 million, a little over $2 million. Half of that was to fund the state hold harmless provision from last year, and the other half we were able just to reduce our expenses from last year. So that's why we were able to increase our fund balance by $3 million in the general fund. We have been projecting about $2 million, so that's why that increase. That's a good sign going into this year. If our ADA does cause us to dip a little bit for the 2022 fiscal year.
Can you remind us too, Mr. Pruitt was talking
About those two, what ESSER number are we in now, though? Like
we've been talking about, remember, 20% of it has to be set aside for
Right, so
learning
that-
losses and things like that. Did you-
That's the big one, which is ESSER three.
Three,
And
thank
that was not reflected in the financial report, or the audit report we just looked at. That'll be looked at beginning next year and then the 2 years after that.
So the last one that Mr. Pruitt was mentioning is he was saying is, you may recall the state, basically from the federal dollars that came down, told us how they had to be spent, and he held us, you know, the DEA held districts harmless for enrollment last year. That was the big lion's share of that round of ESSER.
That's right.
Said, but some was helped with expenses and did increase fund balance, which will
That's right.
also in the future. But other dollars that ESSER 3 were just released after this year started.
So we didn't start spending those until after September 1.
Is that projected for where we're going to land, or is it projected for where we are right now?
For where we're going to land.
Okay.
That's right. Okay, and the last page of the report, page 12, it's an update on our bond budget for all our bond projects. We do have our GMP guaranteed max for most of our projects. The only one we're lacking is still the middle school renovation, and we'll talk about that project more later this evening. So most of these estimates are going to be fairly accurate, not going to change a whole lot other than that middle school renovation. The other kind of question mark or wild card is going to be the FF&E amounts. Those are just based on percentages right now of construction costs. And so as we start getting furniture and ordering items to equip the new campuses for next year, we'll have more information there on where we are in the budget. But at the bottom there, if you'll look at the total bond package projected variance, $7.2 million to the good. And then also if you add in the interest income below that, that's about 8.8 together for favorable variance. And that, of course, doesn't include the construction contingencies that we have built in as well. So any questions?
And Mr. Brooks, thank you for that. I'll just add, currently the contingencies are hovering north of $7.5 million, still unspent. So
In
that's
addition to this.
in addition to what you show there is total bond package surplus is 7.2 million and the interest earned of 1.6. So that, I had it on another sheet of paper somewhere. So
About 16 million.
16.4 million. So, I think too that we'll hear from Masonic, and I know we heard, Mr. Freeman, and Mr. Ford and I heard from, John Irwin on the Park Hill job, that they pretty much have priced it out, meaning they secured everything and priced them. We're not quite ready, but then remember, these were approved as guaranteed maximum. So there could be even within these, some dollars at the end of the projects that come back to the schools based on final pricing, final cost. So we're getting close with these opening in the fall, Park Hill, Chapel Park, CTE building in River Valley.
I would say with a lot of the supply chain issues and increases that we're seeing in the construction world, those are starting to, I see them eat up contingencies on a lot of other jobs, right? So, I don't know. Don't spike the ball yet, that's all I'm saying. Let's make sure we get through the gauntlet, but yeah.
But for how we had it designed too, though, those contingencies hadn't been fortunately past our guaranteed maximum. Those were just, you know, any design change or thoughts we wanted to do, change, or the contractor. They've been pretty minimal so far, which has been very appreciative of our contractors. With that, all of them, from Cloud to Masonic to Irwin. It costs. So yeah, you're right. We're not get overexcited just yet, but it looks very favorable.
This is a really good report.
It's looking good.
It's fair to say we're largely coming in on time and under budget. Very exciting. And I know there are a couple things that ran over, but we decided to do additional things than it's not because costs were inflated, we just added on project, if I recall correctly.
Other questions on the monthly finance report?
So on the, I guess it's on page 1, in terms of the operating expenses, we're looking still at about a $3.2 million deficit for the year, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Making sure that's what that was.
That's inclusive, though, of all amendments approved
Right, right.
so far.
All right, anybody else?
Congratulations again to your department on a great audit.
Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Wesley.
Thank you, sir. All right, bond construction update, buddy.
Speaking of,
Dr. K, Mr. Russick, Board, thank you. Also like to thank you because it was 4 years ago at the December meeting that y'all took Dr. K's recommendation and brought me on board. And it's been great for me. I hope it's been good for you. Also, on the contingencies, we were fairly liberal on the contingencies on those beginning projects because we didn't want to go over what you approved. But on the middle school, we're going to try to be more frugal with contingencies and have that more in line because we don't want to tie up that money for a whole year. These first projects, we know they're going to finish this summer, and so that money will become available after that. But on the middle school, we're going to try to get the contingency probably around 10% of the project is kind of what we're looking at. So we won't tie up a lot of that money for a year without being able to use it. The CTE edition, also Pam, to your comment, yes, Woodgate, the scope grew quite a bit from the initial. Initially, we weren't going to do anything outside, and so the scope grew quite a bit, and so that's why it's over what the bond budget for that project was. The CTE edition, going along great. The masonry is almost finished. They had to order some more split-face block, and when that gets here, they'll be able to finish, and that was because of some changes that we made on the outside of the building. HVAC units have been fired up. Nearly all of the windows are in. A lot of the painting, texturing is being done. Tile work has begun. In your board packet, I included an email that Jonathan Kazanis wrote me on the progress of that project, and I thought he did a very good job with that email. So I wanted to include that in the board packet. I won't read it to you tonight, but he did a very good job. Good genetics.
He
has a good mother.
He has a wonderful mother, yes.
That's the secret to having good kids, is to pick them a good mother.
Yes.
But that project should finish up in June, the CTE project, but there's still some work that will go on inside the high school. There's a kitchen that goes in upstairs. There's right now, a dark room that has to be converted back into a classroom. So there will be some things going on inside. Plus, we'll also be putting new HVAC units in the other part that we didn't do last summer. And that project, we hope to bid it out in January. At River Valley, 80% of the exterior brick is in place. If you haven't been by there, it's looking great. The HVAC systems should be started up by now. We were waiting on some switch gear to be put in place on court. Well, we hadn't ordered a meter. We probably need to get with you tomorrow and get a meter ordered for out there at River Valley. But everything's going good. It should finish up around June 1st also. But there is some work also inside the current building that will go on this summer. They're planning on building a temporary wall in the cafeteria so that they can work on the tie-in area between the new part and the cafeteria. Also, we put a wall up at the high school in the library so they can work on that transition spaces between the new and old building. The ITC building, it's going great. It's going to finish well before spring break. It looks great. A lot of the painting's been done if you haven't been by there. If you want to go look at any of it, holler at me. I'd be glad to give you a tour on any or all of them. Park Hill Elementary If you haven't been by there lately, you're starting to see progress now. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. Outside sheathing, exterior studs are in place. A lot of the walls are in place in sections 3 and 4. It's making progress, but we'll talk about that more here shortly. Chapel Park, Phase 2. Everything's going along well. They're still planning on turning the front over to us at spring break. Most of the studs are up for the admin wall. Some of them have sheetrock and textured and paint. The ceiling grid's supposed to go in soon in that part. When you go in there now, it's really strange after having that round area for so long. It's really different. You have to kind of find your way around in there, but it's going to be really nice. The middle school, Stephen Hafer is here this evening to do the design development for the middle school. Here's what he told me, 15 minutes tops. That's what he said. Also, Walker Partners has finished the plans for the Spring Valley projects on the driveway, and they've sent that to the city of Hewitt for approval, and we hope to bid that out in January and bring you some numbers in February for those projects. So be thinking about that. Did you get it to work? Okay, so if you'll look up here, can they see this on their screen?
I mean, that we have
We've got our own copy.
their copies.
So at Park Hill Elementary, what I wanted you to see on this slide is the progress of construction. Everything, every trade is starting back there in Area 3. And then they go from Area 3 to Area 4, and then up here to Area 1, and then Area 2. So all of the part along the Ritchie Road that you see the most of, that's the last part that gets any trade. So when they started putting up the stud walls, they started in Section 3. Now they've just about have Section 4 done, and then they'll come to 1 and 2. And so it'll be the same thing. Go ahead and go to the next one, Carolyn. This is the roofing. You'll see back there that Section 3 will be roofed first. They've started that today. They already had the wood blocking in place, but they started putting the roofing membrane on today. In those two pink sections, that'll go first, and then they'll come over here to Section 4, and then Section 2, then Section 1. Go ahead. Also, over here, down in the bottom where the bright green and the purple is, that's the concrete driveway going back to Park Hill. That's all in place. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Oh, that's not the one I was expecting next. No.
That's all we have.
That's it. Okay. Ritchie Road, they've started the turning lane on Ritchie Road, and that's going to be done in 2 phases. Phase 1 they're working on now, then they'll go to Phase 2, and then there's a 3rd phase where they have to build 3 entrances into the water plant. So that work will be going on between now and I think it should finish up in April. So this next sheet has some dates on there, and some of the things I wanted to point out is the notice to proceed on that project was February the 8th of 2021. And if you remember, we started CTE and River Valley back in October and November. So you have to remember that project is several months behind the other projects. We're still pretty much on schedule to finish. If you go to the end of it, you'll see that the projected substantial completion is June 22nd. That has bumped back a little bit from around June 1st, but the certificate of occupancy is July 15th. That date hasn't changed from the beginning. So July 15th, they should be completely done with all the punch lists and all that. But in the middle of June, around June 23rd, we can start moving in, is the plan, putting furniture in and all of that. So it'll just be punch list items after that. Any questions?
Similar to our regular
a schedule that we thought would happen. I can't remember. Is it altered drastically because things happen?
It's only a couple of weeks later than what we initially had on that substantial completion.
Right.
Moved from June 1st to June 22nd, so 2 or 3 weeks there. But the final completion of July 15th hasn't changed at all. I know that some of us are nervous about that project, but we still feel good about it. And John Irwin has said that they're going to finish on time, and if they have to, at some point, they'll start working more hours per week. And they have increased that some. Any other questions?
So do we still have some flexibility built in for weather, potential weather between now and then, or would that push us back
You know,
additionally?
that was a good question. That was another thing that was on this list, is that we lost several days to weather.
Like 22?
Do what? So since they're planning on having it in the dry sometime in January,
Okay.
and so once they get to that point, then
Then
there
it's not
shouldn't
gonna
be
matter,
any.
right.
And
Well, I just know from being out there, still looked like it was
Yeah.
at least a month away from that.
with the roof started going on today, the membrane, so once they finish that, we shouldn't have any weather days. Of course, you never know. We could have another snowmageddon.
No, let's not. Let's not.
Any other questions?
Very good, thank you, buddy. All right, then, 15 minutes, Mr. Hafer, we heard.
Bring the auditor back?
Well, well, I see Buddy took my extra time. So,
Pam's the secretary.
are we gonna have to, okay, I'm gonna. Dr. Kazanis, Mr. President, members of the board, always a pleasure to be here. Tonight, we're gonna be presenting the design development for the renovation of the Midway Middle School. So let's just, we'll stop on this plan for just a quick second. As we've worked through from schematic design into design development, not a lot has changed as far as relative to the scope itself. Some of the things that we have been doing, we've been working with the construction manager, which is Masonic, looking at how this project will actually get built. One of the things that you will see as we get to the end and we're looking at the schedule, we're going to be doing this project in 2 phases. It's going to require us to bring some portables onto the campus and utilize some portables for additional classrooms. But due to trying to separate the construction areas with the students, we kind of worked out this 2-phase approach. So as we go through and we move forward into schematic design, phase 1 will go out in the end of January to bid, to be able, it's work that will start this summer. It will be that, I'm going to say, the west end of the campus, which is the 8th grade wing and the administration area. Those are the areas that we will get done. The administration area will be focused on first and get that completed, that renovation completed in the summer so that the administration can move back into it for the start of school. The 8th grade wing will continue on and be completed no later than December, but as soon as possible to get it completed. Then the students over Christmas break will move over into the 8th grade wing, and then we'll take over the remaining portion of the building, which is the cafeteria, the kitchen, and all the east academic wings. And then that area will start in January, and phase 2 will go from January then through the start of school in 23. Yes, in 23. I'm making sure I got my dates right. So we'll quickly run through the presentation. I just wanted to get y'all familiar with that. That's kind of those conversations we've been having in developing how we're going to tackle this project with the construction manager. I think it's a solid plan, what they've come up with, and we've gotten everybody to commit to make sure that they meet these dates and we get this on a timely manner. So to get them to bid out, because yes, we are concerned about cost. That is something that we're seeing on a monthly basis. Prices are always changing. So I'm not going to go through each one of the academic wings. Like I said, the scope itself and the plans have not changed dramatically. What you're seeing here is the 6th grade and 7th grade wings, and we haven't changed anything within the plans. This is the 8th grade academic wing. Similar deal, not much has changed from the way the programmatic space within that area is working. So, then within the center section, we've been working with the food service consultant, so we've got a plan now how we're proceeding forward with that. So that will all be part of phase 2, and you'll see some of the renderings there at the end of the presentation. And then we're tweaking a few things in the reception area as we've been meeting with the principal and staff through that process. So this is the updated renderings. This is looking down the hallway this is the main hallway walk as you go along the library. We're looking at opportunities to dress up that painted bench that's out there, that concrete bench. It's tied into the foundation as part of the retaining wall, so it makes it a little difficult to cut it out, so we're going to figure out how we can cover it and make it look nice. But you see some of the new lighting concepts and lightening it up, putting in new flooring all down through that hallway. So we'll go to the next slide. So this is an updated rendering of the new cafeteria space. So we'll be taking out the block, well, I guess it's the fluted split face block. On the walls, we'll be introducing some smaller handrails with ceramic tile, the LVT. We'll be putting new ceiling in there, new lights. We'll be reworking the lighting on the stage. We're going to resand the stage floor to smooth it out. It's a little rough up there. And so we'll be looking at opportunities to do that, probably put in a new stage curtain, some new spotlights so that you can, while you're not going to be doing performances on this stage, but you will have it back in a usable format within that area. This will definitely lighten up that cafeteria space, bring more light into it, and have a lot more acoustical value within the space, within the ceiling, and the panels that we're proposing on the side walls to help with the noise, obviously, that happens when you've got hundreds of kids in there eating lunch. It's loud during those times of the day. So this is the updated collaboration area. I think in the last one that we showed, we were looking at having movable walls between covering the entire space. As we started doing a little more research, we found we had some existing columns in the middle of the spaces that we were open up. So we're taking advantage of that. We're creating, and the district wanted the ability to be able to open it up, allow free flow, but also be able to close it down and use it as classroom space if they needed it. So what you're seeing there is off to the right of where the column structure is we're going to have a sliding mall front. Then off to the left, you have a fixed storefront with a door in it, and that will occur at each one of the sides, so you can actually create 2 additional classrooms with the collaboration area that's in the space. You also see some of the back wall as you're looking at it. We're working on some options. This was one of the options. We have not selected a specific option. This was just one of the options for some graphics to put in those collaboration areas just to make it more active within that space. The teaching walls where the TVs and the marker board walls will be on the left-hand side as you're looking into that picture. But that does allow the students to, when it's not being used and it's open as a collaboration space, the students can still free flow from hallway to hallway without having to go back to the main hallway. And that occurs in the 6th grade wing and in the 8th grade wing. This is the 7th grade collaboration area that's on the main hallway. This is the one where we had to push it across the main hall. And yes, we're raising the floor in that area up. It's down 4 feet lower, so we're raising that floor up to that elevation, opening it up with a large opening and some glass storefront, because we do have some, if you remember, we do have some structural X-bracing in there that we're going to expose, very similar to what we did over at the Woodgate project. So you see the graphics as you're walking down that main hall. It'll be very open and transparent. You'll see some graphics on the back wall, and then that back long wall will be where the marker boards and multiple monitors back there for small group as well as large group engagement within that space. We think that's going to be a really nice space along that main hallway. You also kind of see, as we're pulling out the lockers, we're going to be painting the block. We're also going to be introducing some additional tile in there to try to liven up those walls where we are removing the lockers from that space. So that'll give it a little more contemporary, a little modern look to it. So this is the collaboration space. You currently have one there at the end on the west wing in the 8th grade area. So the 8th grade area actually ends up with 2 collaboration areas. This is where the latest addition, where the hallways ramp down to those science classrooms on the north side. What we're going to do is open up that space, create just a more inviting space to get into, and a little drop area for the students to be able to utilize there. This is, as I stated, this is the updated schedule. As you see, we're scheduled to, I think they say January 14th. I think we're actually issuing phase 1 on the 28th of January for them to start bidding phase 1 scope. And so we would be looking to be back in probably the March board meeting for approval of that GMP. If it goes out at the end of January, we probably won't make the February meeting, so we'd be looking at a March board meeting for approval of that. But then that gives them the ability to get all their materials and stuff lined up and be ready to go. When construction starts, construction will not start until school is out at the end of, basically the end of May, 1st of June. And then it will go very quickly after that. Phase 3 will then be issued out in mid to late March, and we'll bid that for that phase 2 scope of work that then will begin in January of '23. And then so as we go through the 2 phases, the intent is to be completed with all the renovation and be ready for when the kids come back in the fall of '23. Any questions? Oh, I do have one other thing. Sorry, I almost forgot. They're working on pricing. The CMR is continuously looking at our pricing. In the last estimate that I gave you, we were looking that we were about the renovation scope on the original scope. We thought we were at about $12.7 million, about a $1.6 to $1.7 million over with the increased scope that we had. There is also the additional scope, the exterior scope that we had talked about in schematic design. There's rework of the bus loop drive, the parking. There's the front parking lot. And then there's the courtyard area where we're reworking that flat work in there. One, to create an outdoor seating area for the students that is usable. We're going to flatten out that area, and then we're actually going to step it down. We're going to create a ramp to where the entrance to the PAC, as you're coming in from the public, will actually be the front door, so they won't have to go the accessible route won't be at the back, that back door in the hallway. So that area will be reworked. All of that scope, that additional scope, we think it's somewhere in the $1.1 to $1.2 million. There is also scope that was added for replacement of 6 rooftop units, existing rooftop units, and I think this is coming out of some other budgets.
It's his money.
It's his money. And so as we looked at that, we got some preliminary pricing from IEG looking at that, the replacement of those. So as we look at the total project cost right now, where we're estimating it to be is $14.3 million is where we're at right now for the total project estimated cost. Sorry, I forgot to include that when I was going in the first time.
slid that
Now,
in.
do you have any
Small
questions?
There's a little small detail there. Slide that.
Minor.
Very good.
So about the portables, can you give us a timeline on how the portables are gonna work, which grades are going in the portables, how that's flip-flop, what's the
Okay.
plan with the portables?
The plan with the portables is that we will put them, we're trying to figure out exactly how many we need. We think it's somewhere between, we think it's 10 to 12. The plan is that it will go in the back parking lot near the kitchen, and it will stay there for the entire construction phase. So in the first phase, when they're doing the renovation, the kids will go out the hallway and they can access it by the hallway between the gym and the kitchen. And so and that access will stay there even when we go into phase 2. When we cut off, we're keeping an access aisle along the kitchen and along the stage back to the fine arts area, so that we will always have an accessible route for the students to be able to get to all parts of the campus. But we will put those in this summer, is I think what is our anticipation is, so when we start phase 1, they will have to be there when the kids come back, and they will stay there until the end of school or the end of May of 23. Then we can take them away at that point, and so they'll stay there for the full school year. And then they'll go away after that point.
How many kids are, how big is a portable? How many kids are you thinking will be in the portable at one
Well,
time?
it's 12 classroons. So you're
12
looking at about, say, 30, so 350, 360 kids, yeah.
So would that area be secured?
Yes.
All that stuff? So
Well, it will definitely be secure in phase 1 because of the work that we're doing. Nobody will be back in that area because we will have it totally fenced off with construction fencing. They'll be able to get in and out to the building, but they will not be able to get out beyond that point. In phase 2, we'll probably have to keep some fencing over there in order to make sure that those areas are secure. We haven't gone through all the fine details of that, but
evaluate that through our security plans. Yeah, kids getting out and getting into something they shouldn't get into, which is probably the most likely.
Yeah.
They getting in through that.
well, we looked at several options of how we could phase it, and this seemed to be the cleanest from trying to separate construction from the kids, but that forced us kind of into the portable discussion. And then as we looked at where, did it make sense to move the portables as we move the construction, and it made most sense to keep them in that one spot for the entire time, so.
But how much, everybody's looking at this. Plan view of the building, so that parking lot C, is that where you're talking about?
It's the parking lot, it's the parking lot on the back next to the shop, yes.
That
C.
little parking lot?
Yes.
So how much of that would you expect to take out?
Probably just that first, well, we were trying to squeeze them in up on the concrete. We've been looking at that. We've got the dimensions. I don't believe that they'll fit in that area, so we're going to have to push them probably out into a small area of the parking lot.
The parking lot will still be active, we'll still use it? Will that parking lot still be active?
Well, not in phase 1, because we'll be redoing portions of it.
So that's the bus circle renovation as part of phase 1.
Correct.
And that
And
parking
we've worked with, I know Buddy, Dr. Kazanis, they've been having conversations with the principal. We're going to move, I don't want to go into I don't know all the details, but they've got a plan as to how to put the buses and the parents on the same side and keep them separated.
So no buses would be, would that one not be active?
Well, buses will not be over there because we'll have this whole road on this west side torn up and
will that be
redoing.
during football season,
Yeah.
Yes.
Next one.
while they're doing Mars Drive too?
Well, Mars will be further down, but yeah, there'll be Mars work going
What?
on, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just
Yes.
saying we've got a lot
Short
we've
answer
got a
is
limited amount of
yes.
Connectivity there, where
Stadium.
work's gotta get done, but it's gonna
to the
The
fund.
lack of options for getting.
Yeah,
And we'll have to keep a drive, we'll have to keep access off the back. And this is something we've talked about, but we haven't fully worked out. As we will get in there this summer and try to get the back area, because we're gonna have to maintain access to the kitchen and the dock in the kitchen, so.
I
So,
don't know.
we understand all
How do you
that.
have a football game at Rice Field?
we use the other parking lot.
You can't get to it, Mars Drive.
Oh, that's Mars Drive. Okay, I was confused what you're talking about.
Well, but that part of Mars won't be torn up.
And it
supposed to be
won't
done by
all,
June.
he's only gonna do it in small phases, and then they should have, hopefully, that.
You'll be able
part
to,
open.
you'll be able to
The
get
entrance.
through Old Hewitt and Mars and down. Well,
You can play them at the stadium.
Yeah.
But according to Big Creek, each of those Mars Drive are smaller pieces of the puzzle, and they're gonna work on that area right in front of Rice Field entrance as well.
Yeah, the good part there is there's businesses that.
Whataburger demands it as well because of their drive-through. Yes, sir. Yes.
Well, and I don't know exactly when they're going to start. I think that the thought process is they'll start the rework of the drive as soon as possible in the summer. So if they get that work done, there's a possibility that the drive itself could be opened back up.
Just that parking
Yeah.
lot would be closed.
I don't want to commit Masonic to something that we haven't really figured out, so.
Tell them what to do. That's their opinion.
I think Mars was supposed to be done by then, right? It starts.
That part of Mars.
The part from Hewitt to Old Hewitt, isn't it starting in January and done when the
By
school's
June.
over, before this starts? Is that how y'all remember the
Yeah,
timeline?
those would be.
Yeah, but just a reminder, we were never had that as part of any thoroughfare.
No.
Because
Right.
of Mars, this isn't because of, we're never
Oh,
using
sure.
this area, for, to divert traffic at all.
Yeah.
To the high school or middle school. So the
Just the school activities.
school
being
activity,
affected.
right, and Friday night, and that parking lot, Friday night, games. Visitors still come in the back, the buses are in the back, the visitor, stands, things like that, so.
Well, I think
Won't
that
be
the
affected.
parking lot itself, you'll probably lose because that's also going to be the staging
Staging area.
for the construction trailer and all their materials and stuff. Then in phase two, they're going to move their staging area. Once that's complete, they're going to move it over to parking lot. Golly, my.
Part of A,
Is that A?
yeah, which,
So that way they're right there outside that academic wing.
so does that mean then the front parking lot, which is B right now, is that construction going to happen during phase one or during phase two?
It's going to occur in phase two.
Okay.
So phase one is just the parking lot and the bus loop drive.
Just C, okay.
And then B, and then the courtyard is going to happen in phase two.
Okay.
And a lot of that was because we're going to have to get concrete trucks up in there when we cut out the slab and do the concrete work in the cafeteria. So that will be one of the last things done so they can back concrete trucks up in there as far as possible.
So remind me about the projects that are going to happen in the PAC there. Did we say that's considered part of this project or a separate project? And when is that going to happen?
We've evaluated that, and we'll have that in January for you. It'll be similar, if you recall, the kind of process we went through when we procured the turf.
Yeah.
There's, specific vendors for the rigging and lighting
Right.
that Mr. Umhofer's recommending for the PAC. And we would recommend going through the buy board and can do that as a separate.
I just
It
didn't know
would
from a timing perspective,
Yeah.
how that would integrate in with, if we
I'm
know.
not so sure on timing. We'll have to work through that, but it wouldn't be part of this scope. We have a separate bond budget
Okay.
for that.
Yeah, the rigging scope was part of that. Addressing the lift down in the orchestra pit and that scope.
Is part of this
will-
project.
Yeah, that'll be part of phase two.
We just got to coordinate all that.
Correct.
This is one of the most challenging projects.
It's a complicated project, yes.
Do the portables have restrooms?
Yes.
I'm assuming the use of that is covered in the overall construction costs as well?
Or a bond budget. Yes. And we were talking about looking at
The project costs?
similar portables that we had at Castleman,
Right.
correct?
Oh,
Gotcha.
And the portable buildings is, from the plans that I saw, of course, they're a lot better than the portables that I mean, they basically stack together, so there's one corridor down the middle, and then bathrooms in the center with 3 and 3 classrooms. So, I mean, it looked like a really nice layout, all things, other than having to get from the building, and we will cover and make sure that, you know, that the students are protected getting from the building to the portables.
I think even some kind of plastic on the side of whatever roof you put on, so if it's really cold or windy when they go between the buildings. Protect.
We,
Susan wants to pamper them.
Don't have those at Spring Valley, I don't.
No. But they'll be taken care of. They'll be- Staff.
any other questions?
Thank you for answering all of our.
Well, I didn't make it quite in 15 minutes. but-
well, we asked a lot of questions.
Yeah. You were good on time, man. I appreciate that. No other questions? All right.
All right.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate
Safe
it.
trip. Merry
You too.
Christmas.
You too.
Merry Christmas.
Unbeknownst to me, the superintendent and Miss Marlin have demographic talent.
We do. I'm gonna come up here.
Yeah,
All right.
Graphic talent.
That was.
yes,
Choreographic talent.
demographic.
Tell you when to click, okay? So when we were planning the board agenda, we weren't positive that Mr. Templeton had all of the facts and figures ready, but middle of the day, Friday, able to confirm that the projections and the numbers that we will present to you tonight that you saw in your board packet are true and accurate. And I know she's not here this evening, but Ms. Glazeman has been verifying those as well with the HR department and with every single student, because of course that is the numbers that she's using to project students for, and staff members, I should say, at each of the schools. So I'll just real quickly go through it, and Ms. Marlin can help me too, anything that we missed. But again, if you're looking at that, the most significant part of this slide is just to see the COVID part, and just meaning when in 19 and 20 and 2021 particularly, you see the drop. But back this year already showing the 2.2% is again in line of when this demographic study that was completed in preparation for the bond package of 2019, and that we had been using since this. So we're back, in other words, on track, if you will, hopefully from here on out. These slides, again, are just for your information. Again, you have seen many of this before in our local newspapers as well from our previous, but it does give an idea how Waco, the MSA, is doing. Our unemployment rate certainly is lower than the state, and which is good. We've talked many times about the growth of Greater Waco and the new industries and the number of new jobs coming and development. So I think this is just other data points to confirm the fact that there are jobs to be had in Greater Waco. Interesting, though, maybe you felt it as well, has been the housing, the trends in housing, the growth in terms of the pricing of existing homes, so as well as new homes, listings showing certainly less listings there, if I'm reading that correctly, and really the inventory. So in other words, there's a bigger demand than there are right now for supplies. And so you can see that median price there has also gone up, and the average prices are going up as well in Greater Waco. But that's a trend not only in Waco, but
Next slides are midway as
yeah,
well.
Texas, and as well as the nation too. So total home sales, we rose 4.5%, almost 5% in 2020 from 2019. So more buying and selling is occurring in our district, but again, continue to expect it to grow. And that's another analysis. Average new home price, as you can see, steady click up. Average existing home prices are the ones also really increasing. In year to date in 2021, I think from 2020 to 2021 is when you're really seeing when we kind of came out of COVID, this particular year, starting in January, how much they have increased, over $300,000 now. So, not a lot of new information, but a few new subdivisions, new active growth areas to report to you. But we do have 21 active building subdivisions and 7 future. And groundwork is underway, as you can see, for nearly 650 lots within 8 subdivisions of the district. So a lot going on.
The ones highlighted in red are on the following slides.
On the
Like,
next
on the next
slides.
slides, we'll get detailed.
George, what about that neighborhood I talked to you about?
That's not in this one. No, no. So what Tracy did is took on your computer, just a little bit different. So next slide, Carolyn, thank you. She just organized it so you can see the subdivision that we're talking about, Park Meadows and its growth, and then you can see what currently zoned elementary campus would be affected. And so residential activity for our future Park Hill Elementary is Park Meadows. Park Meadows continues with total lots of 1,224 and 300 future lots. So they really are doing, in terms of the projections that I heard at the very beginning of Park Meadows of 1,500 lots, it's happening. It's there, and there's no less than that. It is. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they're putting in 1,500 and building 150 to 200 a year. And one of our higher student yields, as you can see, they're almost 0.6 per house student.
And then Park Meadows South.
Yeah, next slide is the new one, South. That is just kind of bordering up. That white is some storage units there on the corner there of Warren Road, and that is Park Hill South, and that will go all the way to Warren, and over 800 total lots there. So just a few homes are under construction now, you might have noticed, but it's going to continue to build out as well. So that's, do the math on both of those, 2,300 lots, houses. So quite a few. Yeah, totally driving Park Hill Elementary's enrollment. Yes, sir. All right, next one. And this next area there is, I think, was newer to us. Wasn't necessarily on my radar, but it's really finishing out the Renaissance Phase 6. I wasn't aware there was a little bit of land back in there, kind of behind Hewitt Elementary School and Polo Park, and that, if you're familiar with some of those, are one smaller 58 future lots in there, as well as the Creekside off of Warren there, and it's in the city of Waco though, and is going all basically connecting up, as you can see. So 750 total lots in that particular subdivision. Also for Park Hill, that one is, yes. Chapel Park. All right, so Chapel Park Elementary School, the Chapel Ridge addition near St. Jerome's Catholic Church, as you can see in Ritchie Road, all of that eventually will be filled in with homes, 331 total lots and over 150 future lots. So that's just at a nice pace. But you can see, for example, just to make note, that yields quite a bit less, 0.25. Again, it's drawing a different buyer to the area. I think it's convenience. New home, people moving there just because less maintenance costs and just wanting to get a new home. So we definitely are seeing a little bit of different demographic coming out to the district, and specifically at particular subdivisions. In Chapel Park, is right on Chapel Road and very, very convenient. Next is Tanglewood, and 450 total lots, and I know there's several homes in there being built, and 320 future lots. So it's several phases to Tanglewood as well in the planning stages. And Garden Meadows is going back to the Chapel Road area there. That's not directly across from St. Jerome's, but next to, it's squeezed in between Western Ridge subdivision and some apartments. They used to call them Saddlebrook. I forgot the new name of those apartments, but it's more, is your 300 lots though. A lot of lots, but very much smaller. I don't know, Brad, if you know if they're like patio homes, garden homes, very, very small, high density in that area too. So you may have seen the sign for Garden Meadows. West End, we've talked about that. Remember, it was zoned. West End is Ken Cooper's 600 future lots. I think very soon, we keep thinking anytime a home will start. I don't know, if, Brad, if you've heard any groundbreaking just yet, but I would assume it's pretty soon. Next couple of months, yeah. So he has several phases. I have personally visited with him. I think he has like possibly up to 10 phases, but again, that's at 600, but he has each one platted out in smaller phases, and so he's working, as you can see, a 50 to 20-year master plan, so a little bit longer type of timeline with the West End. Woodway Elementary has just now kind of switched gears. If you're on Bosque Boulevard and you're in turnings, as you know, going toward Lake Waco and the park at the end there, Lake Forest had been a nice big subdivision put in, and homes even closer than to Bosque, but then another one is just kind of, like I remember, was it Rick Oak Street, I think? Oak? in the Oak Hollow, behind Oak Hollow, back in there toward the lake is this one called Westlake Estates. So it looks like those will be larger, as you can see. The other note I wanted you to see is in some of these, the prices that are estimated for lots. No longer we're looking necessarily at the yield per house. These are starting at $250,000 just for the lot, not the house. So more expensive homes with Westlake. Next one, South Bosque, Deer Valley. This is right across the street from River Valley Middle School, and just looking straight across, they're able to procure land and carve around an existing home that was there and go in the back. And 90 future lots, as you can also see the lot prices, very expensive. But 90, so larger lots, larger acreage or more, I assume, per home. So home starting late in 2022. So it's coming up. So the average, as you can see in the top there, multifamily yield is 0.225. So again, we put all that together, the growth. That's why we've had our steady growth in Midway. It's just, again, a mix of demographics coming to the district looking for homes, looking for housing, not necessarily everyone with students in the driving force for our district is really, really growing and appeals to a number of people. But I'll say, though, just today, again, in a Rotary Club meeting this morning, I was visiting with a Rotarian and had retired, maybe 5-6 years ago. But that was, even though a retiree is moving, let's say, and wanted a home, the reason why they bought out here is because of the district. And that continues to be one of the selling points, and knowing that they know their values will be strong, consistent, and resale value will be there. So that's why I'm saying district is still an integral part of this, but it is drawing a variety of demographics to the district. And our demographer that's not here tonight because he's in another district, Bob Templeton, is now a resident of Midway ISD and bought a new home in the Stone Creek addition, and his family moved close out McGregor, Gatesville area. And so I agree. Travel costs or that part should be cut totally. I'm with you 100%. Discounts. I think we need a discount. Yeah.
Most of them would be in our area, our part of the world. I think, we can certainly exceed, I think, the
Projections, right.
pretty easily, if the housing was to keep up with the demand. Brad?
See the lot prices keep going way up, the material prices are the same, they're in.
There you
now
go. Thank you.
Back on the way up again,
Lumber's back up?
It's starting to creep back up again, so it's gonna be a really big challenge to keep pricing.
Affordable.
Affordable.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, with a natural disaster like the tornadoes last week. I mean, that's gonna suck up a lot of resources and materials.
Yeah, rebuilding efforts. Next slide.
The lot inventory has been being replenished, so, you know, for several years, there weren't really many new developments. Now they're all coming online, so it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out, if we can fill the demand.
Are we similarly looking at the projections and what it's gonna do to our tax base? When house prices go up 17%, and that's 50% of our tax base is residential.
It just means we're no longer Chapter 41. They changed the name to Chapter 49, but within that could put us, unless we get the students. So students are critical. It also helps keep us with that property value, property wealth per student below the state cutoff. I'll add, though, that across Texas, overall, this is occurring. And again, the legislature is going to have to face that again of how much recapture they're taking in. Because that number was reduced because of House Bill 3, but it's back up. It keeps inching up, where the state's responsibility is less, and it becomes more the responsibility of the locals to fund public schools. So they're going to have to look at the recapture formula, hopefully, the next session.
Well, that, George, and the other piece of it is the way the formula works in part is of course, as the values go up and everything, the state, to keep their share the same, is compressing the tax rate, and how are they going to continue to pay for that?
You're absolutely
They
right.
really didn't put anything in place to do that.
You mean they didn't think about that, Pete?
Well, I think they thought about it. They just didn't do anything about it.
Because remember, that's still in place because of House Bill 3 as a compression of the local tax rate, M&O rate. So that's the state's responsibility, so we'll see.
And I would say, an important piece attached to the growth is it will improve our bonding capacity, which will need to be tapped again at some point
For this.
to
Yes.
manage this growth. So.
Yes. And so the student density is just, I find fascinating and interesting. Yes, we have a lot of growth, a large district in terms of our footprint in McLennan County, but still quite a few live along Hewitt Drive and Highway 84, in terms of density of our students. One of the other things, though, is the fact that now, again, I've been almost finishing 10 years here as a superintendent, is that third bullet. The number of students that reside within the city limits of Waco has continued to rise, while the other two, Hewitt's pretty much kept its own. It's always been about 30%, but the Woodway, Woodway's certainly built out, except for a couple of them I showed you, of new subdivisions, and the city portion continues to rise, almost 37%. It's interesting. I think this has finally, in terms of caught on, if you will, with our city of Waco leaders. Tomorrow, I believe, I'm meeting with two councilmen, Jim Holmes and Josh Borderud, to talk about the demographic study, but also a couple of other items just that affect both Midway ISD as well as their districts. Because as you know, Mr. Holmes's district is a large district starting in not far off from MCC, kind of a banana, if you will, on Lakeshore Drive, and then it swims over to Lake Waco and picks up Hidden Valleys and Twin Rivers and crosses over with Stone Creek and things like that. Borderud starts all the way in Castle Heights parts of Waco, his district, but runs all the way and encompasses all of the West Waco Neighborhood Association, which includes City of Waco around like Hunter's Run or Western Ridge, plus, not to forget, all of Park Meadows is City of Waco. That's not Hewitt. So all of that new growth, that's why Mr. Borderud is very interested, because that is his district.
Is Park Hill in Waco or Hewitt?
Park Hill physically
school
is
is in Hewitt.
Hewitt.
Is in Hewitt, okay.
That's right on the
I was thinking
line.
about the sidewalk issue we're trying to get done.
Right
Okay.
on the dividing line.
And the sidewalk issue to talk to them about is Spiegel. The sidewalk issue to talk to the city of Waco about is Spiegel.
Spiegelville Road, because they're part of, that's Jim's district, yes.
So is this taking into account any new multifamily then at all, or not really? Is there any anticipated, or?
Not anything major. I've noticed a few smaller
Bob Davis is
duplexes,
doing a lot of multifamily housing.
but I have not.
84, isn't he? West. Yep.
He didn't find, we'll ask him.
That'd be high yield, I would expect.
We'll definitely talk to Mr. Templeton, do a little more digging in that area, but I did not bring it to our attention in this report.
Okay, so.
Okay, next slide then, too.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, so this is just a review of transfer report. We talk about this, as you know, particularly with Dr. Johnson, when we look at that in the spring of transfers. This is just showing transfers in for the 2021 school year. We don't have 21-22 just yet finalized, but 215 students transfer in, but you'll see we transfer out 390. So we have more that leave. And you can see a number of reasons, number of districts there. Many of them could be, we have found staff members work in other school districts and take their children with them. There's a couple charter schools, Rappaport and Harmony, as you can see. But the ones that we know that border us, particularly McGregor and Crawford, take a large number because they're so close, and a different environment for some of the students and families that they prefer. And they definitely have open transfer in Lorena.
I think it's also important to point out on our transfers in, more than half of those are our employees' children.
Right. So we're running just a little over 100 total transfers K-12. Most of them, as Tracy said, are our employees' children's. All right, so the forecast. And so, again, this has been updated, and so now, you remember Bob talked about it, and when we were doing this for the bond, we knew we had, of course, the work to pass the bond, and then have our construction projects and get those completed. And then we knew that it wasn't truly then 10 years, but now we do have that 10-year outlook, if you will, from today forward, and we'll continue to adjust and update this. But again, an average of between 2.5, as you can see, each year of growth from 84.35. I think we're a little higher than that actually today, closer to 84.50 today's enrollment. But as you can see, getting close to 10,500 at the end of the 10 years for the district. And then you can see the different cohorts of students. Over 600 for the most part. We're averaging, just 11th grade's a little bit smaller there, but for the most part, 11th grade. We certainly would love to see that pre-K number go up, as we've had as high of 216 before the pandemic. Again, that has been a result of the pandemic, and maybe hopefully a few more students will come back after that, so that we can have them. We hope to keep over 200 in pre-K. Next slide. Oh, too fast. And so this, again, color charted. I think one of the good things to see is not major reds and oranges, remember, of that, but some to look at. And just a caveat of all this is to remember what Bob, Mr. Templeton often talked about is a demographic study at best is 5 years. I mean, we do show 10, but just remember, really, we have been working in the district, again, hard to update our demographic studies. We know conditions change, so I just keep that in the back of your mind, knowing we're going to do this again and be able to update it. But interesting just to see where we are with schools and possibilities of in a 10-year outlook to make an adjustment or two to balance out some of the schools, particularly in Hewitt. Park Hill, as you can see, is well over the number, starting in 26-27. At 795. So 1, 2, 3, 4, that is the 5th year. So I'm just meaning with the demographic study in the building. But with that number and continuing to rise, though, there could be adjustments if you look at Hewitt Elementary's numbers as well as Spring Valley's. And that's why you may recall when we were talking about bond dollars, and if we have the pleasure of have some surplus projects, is looking at the enrollment of Spring Valley, trying to boost it maybe with a 4-classroom wing that could boost its enrollment more to that 640, 650 range, a little bit larger than it is now, to kind of possibly help with that and make some adjustments for the Hewitt side. I'm sorry, go back one more time, Carolyn. Let's see. Anything else? And then looking at the 2 middle schools, I don't talk often, but again, we're going to start with one significantly larger, but not really changing as much as you see in the growth at River Valley. So that, again, if you're looking at the 10-year growth, they both almost become equal at the end of the 2031-32. But it's just a slower project, with River Valley growing and certainly soon to be equal in enrollment with Midway Middle School. high school with 3,000. That's right on line with what we were thinking. Their current capacity is around 2,700 and was projecting with the CTE addition and then being able to remodel the high school classrooms and have more general education classrooms. We could be north of 3,000 students, 3,100, so the high school.
Possibly pulling 100 off for Horizons.
Yeah, and we do have, we'll be launching our Horizons program at our ITC building, and that could also affect the numbers there too.
What is the size for, I know it changes when they reevaluate every few years, but the bottom of the 5A bracket, size-wise?
1,200?
6A.
Or 6As or 5, the bottom of 5A? Or
They
5A?
just changed it.
2.
I think it's about 1,200.
I thought it was 22, 25. I'm estimating, I think I recalled it was about 1,200 or 1,300.
I think it was about 1,200. They just came up with those new numbers.
For, the beginning 5A Division II is around that 1,200, 1,300 high school, up to 22, 24 is your top 5A. 6A is 22, 25 and above.
Yeah. But I think at some point, we as a body, we've got to decide what our future strategy is. Is it to grow a super 6A school, or is it to go down to 2 5A campuses? What's that? Yeah.
That was close. Yeah. There's all kinds of talk with the UIL. Not different from, I mean, you're right about the district making that decision in the long term about high schools, but they even talked about a 7A at some maybe, because it's hard to believe it. We're at 2,500. We're still one of the smaller 6As.
Yeah.
Texas high schools continue to grow and grow. I saw one, for example, that's in our district, Duncanville. They have almost 5,000 kids they turned in.
Right. And I think we gotta think seriously about, would we rather stay at a 5A size and have more local competitors that we're dealing with on a UIL standpoint, or do we want to keep traveling like we are north and south as the districts get realigned? And I'd also say, looking at our outflow of transfers, probably that's a lot of families looking for a different, a smaller school experience, and we're not on a trajectory, at least high school-wise, to be providing that, so.
I believe there's 17 districts in our county alone. Alone. So we have lots of choice.
So I don't know we don't have to decide that today, but I think there's some strategy.
Well, why not?
that we should-
You brought it up.
Okay.
Not to push that off, but I'm not here 10 years either, so. It'll be a different superintendent as well.
Yeah, you just thought redrawing the attendance zone boundary.
No,
Yeah.
I don't disagree, but.
No, we all know it's
we've
coming
gotta-
down the future sooner.
Yeah.
I will say, though, for me, I would just use personal privilege for a second. For me, though, I was gratified, at least I was happy to see, though, even after, with COVID and then after COVID, and seeing projections and seeing where we are, that they are in line of what we told our community in the bond of 2019, what you all have approved in terms of our buildings and providing facilities and really being able to accommodate as best we can in such an economical way over moving from just currently 10 campuses to 11 only in terms of numbers of campuses, and still being the needs of, meeting the growth of the district. Again, but remember, the caveat is always, they're good for about 5 years. We're going to always have to keep coming back and looking at this because of all of those factors of Greater Waco, growth, jobs, new industries, things like that.
Back on the capacity question real quick. Brad, do you know from a middle school standpoint, I don't know anything about how the UIL does middle school sizes. Is having a 1,100 and 800 going to put us in different competitive brackets with the two, or are we? Oh, it is. Okay, good.
Yeah. The only thing I heard was from Mr. Umhofer, there's some assignment in fine
I
arts.
knew there was for fine arts.
But he said in a year or two, we will balance back out.
Okay.
Like your size of your middle schools is kind of who your choir goes to compete against, or your middle school orchestras, things like that. All right, so again, this is just summary. You can see the chart where we're moving from 8,400 now to a little north of 8,400 to 10,005 in the 10 years. Just a lot of lots with groundwork underway. Continue to grow. So is that the last slide, Carolyn? Okay.
So from a standpoint of continuing to be mindful of these sorts of things, George, would you say that wait another 18 months to 2 years before we spend the money and redo this?
Absolutely. I think that's wise. Yes, let's see. This year, let's really see enrollment next year, and really kind of let's get through construction. Got so
Right.
much going on and transitions and all of that, and really see where we balance back out with that. It's all in the long run good. It's kind of like the same pep talk we get about I-35. It's a lot inconvenient now in Waco, but it'll get better. And it's getting, on the downhill slide, we're kind of there with all of our projects. But infrastructure with Mars and all that happened too. And I know it's not going to be easy for the next year or two, but once it's all done, it'll be nice. And that might spur even more growth this way. I just don't know if some of that inconvenience will pause people for a little bit until, and then Brad, you can tell us, I mean, the two is going to have to be the supply of what you guys can crank out and what you can get supply-wise to actually build these houses too, so.
We did do an update earlier than normal because of COVID. And
Right.
we needed to see how the actual impact was, as well as give us harder numbers for staffing. But you could wait a period of time before doing it again, but then pay attention if there's a major factor that's gonna change something like COVID did.
Right, and I appreciate that, because I 100% agree. We needed to do it now just to see, because, I mean, when's the last time we had a loss of students? That's been a long time ago, and trying to figure out what's going on with that. But absent that, we don't need to spend the money and do this every year, but because of how long the crystal ball has got accuracy, we certainly don't want to wait 4 years to do the next one.
There are a couple of wild cards out there that could
Right,
really,
yeah.
bring a lot more to this community fast. So we need to stay.
You could tie it to economic development within the industrial park and say every time we reach, I don't know, $10 million of something, then
Something
we do
new.
another one
Yeah. Yeah.
of jobs.
Yeah, one of those is the industrial park at McGregor. That's one way I really hadn't thought about, but, it's seeing significant growth with SpaceX, and now Knauf is building a plant, and it's got a 1,000-acre certified mega site that, that's gonna attract somebody who's gonna bring thousands of jobs to that site, I'd say sooner than later, so.
Anything else, folks? Our amateur demographers, good job.
Good team. I see your next career,
Inside and out now.
Bob can have a job.
All right, consent agenda. We got minutes from November, our calendar for next year, our audit report, several early graduation requests, our design development that Steve presented, our update 118 on our board policy local items. Does any board member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Motion by Ms. Vick, second by Mr. Alford. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, that motion carries unanimously. Consideration of personnel, we have one professional recommendation to approve.
Should be at your table.
Yes, that's what I saw. Do we have a motion to approve that professional recommendation?
So move.
Motion by Ms. Watts,
Second.
Second by Ms. Vick. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion also carries unanimously. Anything else for open session besides superintendent communications?
Nope, I would be happy to do that
Let's do those next.
first, and
Yes,
then
sir.
we'll go into closed session. Members of the board and those in attendance tonight, just a quick update about school opening plans for the fall, just to tell you a couple of projects going on. It continues, but we soon will be closing the survey for grandfathering requests that we sent out for the elementary schools that was open. We see very little traction on it now. I mean, those that were interested have turned that in. I think last count was around the 60s mark. So we'll go through those again and look and see about that. That was very important to HR to look and see again. The video that I did and the letter I sent, I think was pretty clear about our first priority is really looking at current fourth graders at all schools. If they're, again, siblings, it's just too difficult with siblings of the child. And so really looking at that's the last one. If a family member has, and they've just been at that school, and they would have a transition to a new school for 1 year only and then to middle school. So we're looking a lot at those fourth graders for Ms. Glazeman and HR to staff that, to be sure we have enough fifth grade teachers at the school. Good, I think it's good data that we got, and we can help make some of those accommodations.
George, is that kind of across all of the schools, or are we seeing it mostly in one or two areas?
It really was, every school has some.
Okay,
It's
good.
nice, very nice. And again, people turned it in and have fallen directions very well with that survey. And we'll go through it and just confirm and see current placement and see what that does to projections of fifth graders at its schools. But we've had it at all schools, all campuses, which is good. Again, still in January, big month about staffing these schools and the 8 elementaries and the 2 middle schools. HR's finalizing those plans. In conjunction, though, Mary Lou is bringing in TASB. They are doing we had that on pause for a couple of years, but their study of the salary, competitiveness of Midway, doing that this spring. Also, they're looking at, I call it position control. It's really looking at our size, our district, our grade configuration, and they look and see in comparable districts to us, and are we understaffed in certain areas, overstaffed in certain areas, and it does help because we got a lot of decision points for the fall, a lot of budgetary, let's call them drains, opening schools next year, and want to be sure that we're as efficient as we can and that we're appropriately staffing we can to make sure we don't have areas that are not in line with the state and TASB. So she should have that hopefully March and April as well, to have that for us as we are in the middle of our beginnings of the budgetary cycle for the 22 school year. All right, just an announcement again. Appreciate everyone about January. We're moving that meeting to the 25th for our regular meeting. We'll send reminders about that and post that. The other thing I'm working on is working for our annual, it's called Team of 8, but team building type training that we do on all kinds of different topics. Remember last year we talked about community-based accountability. We're really talking to our local attorney, Angela Tikel, and she's going to work with us too on that, and the Powell maybe consultant with them too, possibly to work with us on that. I think she's got a great perspective as a local attorney here in the Waco area, as well as her experience as a board member in another district, and talk to us about maybe do some scenario-based training, some thoughts and ideas about that, and just kind of, I'm always looking and thinking, what could we do a little differently? Trying to keep the topics fresh, relevant, for conversation and talk among the 7 of you and me.
Place.
Yeah.
You used to want to do a ropes.
I still want to do
course.
rope course, and that's
Well, that's
never
not a
come to
bad idea.
fruition.
Maybe-
Nobody's
maybe
ever,
Ms.
so I'm
Tickles-
going with something new this time,
Maybe
something new.
we could meet off,
Something
and
new.
her office isn't far from the escape room, so maybe we
That's
could.
good team building.
She's in the Roosevelt, what's the name of the building downtown? Yeah, maybe we could do that. So, and then we're real excited, as I said, we're closing the You said it, Mr. Russick, the first semester is hard to believe.
You made it.
Made it, and we'll be all excited about Christmas holidays. We're very excited about that, and wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Absolutely.
Merry Christmas.
All right, then, we still need to go into closed session. We're gonna do that now at 8:46 under 551.071 and 551.0821 of the Texas Government Code. All right.